Congratulations! It is with great pleasure that we announce that you have been selected by Accio Justice Wizarding Lawyers to assist them in a new project as Muggle legal consultant. Following a catastrophic incident over the winter that led to a myriad of lawsuits against the state, the Minister of Magic has tasked Accio Justice with the proposal of a recommendation for a new regime of state liability. Since such a regime has yet to exist in the wizarding world, the wizarding attorneys at law have turned to you for your expertise on Muggle legal systems. Since this is your first big project at the firm, Accio Justice has given you access to 3 senior partners with immense knowledge on Muggle law. Together, you will be brought to think about the principles that underlie both public and private law, as you will be pushed to think about the usefulness of state liability and its place in the private law of civil wrongs. For context as to the issues at hand, here is what happened last winter.
The Hogwarts Express is an icon of the wizarding world, an emblem of the hope and excitement of all young witches and wizards who dream of studying magic at Hogwarts. But on a fateful day, that hope and excitement turned into tragedy.
As the train made its way towards Hogwarts, a fierce winter storm descended upon the tracks. The Ministry of Magic had been warned of the danger, but out of fear that canceling the train would cause panic among parents, they decided to risk it anyways. The ministry feared that parents might assume that the canceling of the train was linked to Voldemort's potential return rather than the storm, and that the ministry was thus showing weakness when the wizarding world needed them to be strong. The train chugged on, fighting through the blinding snow and hail when suddenly a disaster struck. The tracks became slick with ice, and the Hogwarts Express careened off the rails and plunged into a nearby lake. The water was as cold as the Dark Lord's heart, and many of the children trapped inside the sinking train succumbed to the hypothermia. Despite the efforts of the Hogwarts staff, many lives were lost that day. The news of the tragedy sent shockwaves through the wizarding world. Parents were left heartbroken and shattered, mourning the loss of their beloved children. The Ministry of Magic initially downplayed the severity of the accident, insisting that tragedy was unforeseeable. But the truth was that they had been warned, and they had chosen to ignore the warning to avoid political fallout. As the days and weeks passed, anger and outrage grew among the wizarding community. Protesters marched outside the Ministry of Magic, demanding justice for the children who had died. Scholars and jurists also weighed in on the issue, pointing out that without a mechanism for state liability, the ministry was virtually immune to any legal repercussions. They argued that this lack of accountability is as unjust as it is despotic, as it allowed the ministry to act with impunity and without regard for the consequences of its actions. The ministry was forced to acknowledge public outcry the louder it grew, and so, despite officials initially insisting that the wizarding world did not need a similar legal protection as the Muggle world, the ministry eventually agreed to consider implementing a system of state liability.
Created using Fatou.